Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we're talking about the things that are weighing on our minds.
Are we, Trevor? Are we?
I was so
My mind is
confident-
light today.
so confident in starting that out, and then I just was like, "What am I doing?"
I believed it. I believed you.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and today I'm an aligned Invisalign boy. I got my aligners in. It's a little different. It's a little bit the same. And I'm just happy to be with everyone here in the same room today.
Yay!
We're all together.
Yay!
Woo! My name is Michael. I'm a chaser. I actually don't have my Invisalign. I don't have Invisalign. I have Bite, which is like it's the same like idea of like clear plastic aligners.
It's the Spirit Airlines of
Yeah, it'll get you there. You just may lose a tooth on the way.
You got 32. Do you need them all?
Well, exactly.
That's Bite's motto. Hey, my name is Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I am a well-medicated back boy. I have just taken Dan's concoction of painkillers for the back that I valiantly threw out of whack getting out of bed to record your podcast for you this morning. So you're welcome, listeners. You're welcome.
I mean, I will say, Dan. So this is what Dan gives me when my back is out of whack. It is Advil and Tylenol.
Yes,
but Don is like, I don't know. I want to have a clear head for the podcast.
Well, I don't hit you in the head.
Well, he just referred to it as the painkiller bomb. So I figured I should make one inquiry at least into what I was putting in my body.
It is my specialized concoction formulation.
It's Tylenol, Advil, and meth.
Keeps you right on humming. Hi, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And yes, apparently, and right now, in-home pharmacist. So
He's my supplier.
You can take these. It's fine.
He
It's
said the
fine.
first dose was free.
That's
That's right. That's right. And then they give you the chewables.
Yeah.
St. Joseph's. That's the one they take out the big guns. Anyway, yeah, it's
the
a
biggest suppository I've ever seen.
Oh, jeez.
I said chew it, never mind. Anyway, it's a great day here in not so sunny Hollywood.
Yeah, it is not sunny at all.
It's raining.
So yes, so we're here. We're back in person. In case you couldn't tell by the chaotic
Boisterousness.
energy we
The
have.
random giddiness.
And welcome to the show. As Trevor says, gentle listener. Gentle. What about our not gentle listeners?
That's me.
What about them? All listeners.
They've already been given Trevor's phone number, and they already
Give them
We have a place for them.
Give them the hookup for the store brand Advil and Tylenol.
It's called the Naughty Corner.
Thank you, Patreon listeners.
Yes.
Listeners, givers, non-Patreon listeners, all the listeners, all the ears. We give you a little, I don't know, a headphone kiss. We have, we're getting back to it after our moves, our ships, our sicknesses, where we had little things, eggs and Gatorade. But we have Don and I are doing something this month, which
Yes.
I have some ideas. They're exciting. It's
For
all
a
fat.
minisode.
Yes.
Yes.
That we've been teasing the hell out of it. It's going to be spectacular. But let's get right on to it.
Let's do it. We have pop culture, baby. We can actually all hear the music at the same time now.
Da, 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 da. We're all dancing together. Da, da, da. I take off my hat.
Jazz hands.
It's God. So there's a theme to this
Yeah.
pop culture section, starting off with revisions to Roald Dahl's books.
Famed children's author, Roald
Yes.
Dahl, who is
You might know him from as the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie and the Great Grass Elevator.
James and the Giant Peach.
The Witches.
You did say great glass elevator, right?
I tried, but
I heard great grass elevator, which is a completely different book.
yeah,
Okay.
it is. Right. But they sure do go high.
So anyone who, I don't know, grew up reading Roald Dahl books knows that he's kind of a dick. There is his books are magical, and then also like there's a problematic streak through them.
Oh,
that is pretty
I think
consistent.
the word you're looking for is fiercely cruel.
Yes. Well, and okay, so Roald Dahl was, a racist asshole, but you kind of see how he ended up there. If you read there was a biography of him called Boy that we read in like 3rd or 4th grade that really kind of like, oh, all of his books kind of make more sense now.
Right.
Because he was just,
That's how he was treated by the
but
British.
also like the very clear anti-Semitism that his estate actually acknowledged in 2020.
Yeah.
Which they released a statement that I sent. So does someone want to read?
I'll read it.
And you say this is based on the anti-Semitic remarks?
Yes.
Okay. The Dahl family and the Roald Dahl Story Company deeply apologize for the lasting and understandable hurt caused by some of Roald Dahl's statements. Those prejudiced remarks are incomprehensible to us and stand in marked contrast to the man we knew and to the values at the heart of the Roald Dahl stories, which have positively impacted young people for generations. We hope that, just as he did at his best, at his absolute worst, Roald Dahl can help remind us of the lasting impact of words.
So that acknowledges some of it, but also like this isn't the first time they've edited the language of the books.
Well, there's two issues here. One is that statement for his anti-Semitism,
Yes.
and the other is that the Roald Dahl Story Company has just come out with the new expurgated version or edited
Yes.
version of some of the Roald Dahl stories, taking out some of the, I guess, offensive parts.
descriptions
descriptions
of characters.
There is
that's-
some pretty foul stuff in there.
Well, let Trevor explain.
Yes. So this isn't the first time they've done this. The first edition of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from 1964, which is the edition that my school had, that
Mine too.
my 1st grade teacher had, is talking about the Oompa Loompas going to like deepest, darkest Africa.
No, he went to darkest Africa to get the Oompa Loompas.
Yes.
But, to be fair, he did save them from the vicious Knids.
Yeah, it's and just like very much like they are described as black pygmies in the first edition of the book, and
they're very happy in their state of living slavery and being paid in chocolate. I think it was.
Yeah, it's a hot mess express.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And that was like even in
And there were pictures in the version I had.
Yeah.
They were not good pictures either.
and like that was, I think, within the 2nd edition they were like, yeah, maybe we should like take this out.
In the movie, thankfully, they were orange.
Yeah.
Right, that made it okay.
Yeah.
That made it okay.
But so, like I said, not the first time they've updated stuff, but the changes made
In this
are-
version.
in this new version, I think they're calling it the 2022 version because that's when they did the edits. It's to the point to where I'm like, it's not really fixing anything.
It's sort of like putting an X over over the vowel in a bad word. It's like we can tell what's there.
And so like to the extent, there was a really great article in the Telegraph that's behind a paywall. If you have access to that, I would check it out because they go through all of the changes in all of the books.
We have a couple.
We have a
examples.
preview,
Should we read a couple?
Yeah. So this is from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And this is when they're talking about Augustus Gloop. The original was a 9-year-old boy who was so enormously fat he looked as though he had been blown up with a powerful pump. And the new one is a 9-year-old boy who was so enormous he looked as though he had been blown up with a powerful pump. So they just get rid of fat. Another section.
Because that's the bad part.
Yeah.
Just the word. He's still fat, and they just still describe him as huge. They just took out the word fat.
Yeah.
The next, once again, Augustus Gloop. Great flabby folds of fat bulged out from every part of his body, and his face was like a monstrous ball of dough. The revision was, great folds bulged out from every part of his body, and his face was like a ball of dough. And like
That's not helping.
they just got rid of the word fat. Any mention of the word fat in most books, they just get rid of as though that was what's offensive.
It's interesting that like the fat movement is trying to reclaim the word fat, and almost like as a reaction, everyone else is trying to get rid of it.
Well, and that's
long been the
if
case,
each of the kids has a uniquely identifying negative trait as like a flaw as the reason why they get eaten up by the factory, and Augustus is that he's fat because you could describe it as that he's gluttonous, but his gluttony is implied through fatness.
Yeah.
Not that he's just gluttonous.
Well, the thing is, he only has, like all of the characters in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he has one episode that gets him in trouble, right? They all have one single transgression. And it's described as, like, that one moment is the quintessence of all their negative traits, which we can see on their body, we can see in their personality. Violet eats the gum. Mike TV gets on TV. Augustus takes a drink from the chocolate river.
But he was given permission to. That's the thing that always gets me.
Exactly. That kills me.
He's doing the same thing that all the other children are doing.
Yeah, but he's fat. He can't do that.
But the only thing I remember from and this is from the movie, I don't know if it's in the book or not, is that he doesn't obey fast enough when someone tells him to stop drinking from the lake because it's not processed enough. Or something
Well, the
like
idea is that he won't stop, right? He's told to stop. He won't stop. In the movie, his mother tells him to stop.
Yeah.
But taking out the word fat doesn't make that section
No.
not offensive.
Not even a little
And they do, there's such a high level of removing descriptions, even when they're not really problematic, because it's like, oh, well, it's offensive. In James and the Giant Peach, they remove any description of Miss Spider being black because it's a spider that is black. That is just the color of the spider. And they do the same with Miss Earthworm, the earthworm being pink. And I understand, but like even with, if they talk about in one of the books, like, you know, a creature having black beady eyes and it has beady eyes. And I think I understand the thought of like, oh, well, we shouldn't describe anything as black because
some people are black.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also be like, well, if we're not saying black, we shouldn't say pink. And if we're not saying pink, we shouldn't say whatever.
It's almost like it was edited by AI.
Yeah. I mean, they get rid of talking about Mike TV having guns.
Oh, that's
which
interesting.
I understand, but also like there is so much baggage with these books, and I understand the idea to like, oh, we need to modernize them. But I think that is like taking away an opportunity to be like, hey,
Yeah.
these things were really beloved. You know, someone in your life may still share it, but this is what, you know, was going on at the time. This is the complicated legacy of this person. And, you know, take this in mind going to it, or even just having an opportunity to talk about, you know, okay, how did this make you feel?
Yeah.
Why do we feel this way?
I agree.
How have things changed?
And right now, the removal of this stuff, just pretending it was never there, to me it's very reminiscent of the current movement in American classrooms to
Yes.
whitewash history.
I was just thinking
Yeah.
about to say that because I was thinking
It makes us uncomfortable that we used to be so nakedly obvious in the way that we could accept any of this stuff. So let's just remove it and pretend we never did that. Right.
Well, and I do
And-
get the argument that one is historical and happened, and the other is fiction, and we can revise it. I do get that.
But here's the thing. Yeah.
But I agree. But that's the end of my statement. I agree.
You know, but here's the thing, like removing it, it's exactly what you're saying. It doesn't serve the purpose. So I watched this movie, Birth of a Nation.
Oh my
right?
God.
I had never seen it. I'd only heard of it so many times. And it's one of the most iconically racist movies in the U.S. history. But the long and short of it is, the first 15 or 20 minutes of it, I'm watching it going like, oh yeah, okay, I can see this is pretty racist, but I don't understand why people, and then it hits, right? And if you wanted to edit out the racism from that movie, you could do it. It would be like maybe 15 or 20 minutes long, but it doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't change the fact of what it's about, of what the statements were, and exactly like what you're saying, it removes the benefit of those things in a classroom setting where that would have been useful.
Where you can use it
sorry,
as a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So-
and by the same token, going along with the Dahl estate, you know, you wouldn't say, you know what, it was a great movie, but problematic. We're going to remake it now. Like, ugh, no.
At the same point, I'm going to contradict myself now because
You
I
want
feel
that?
like as the Dahl estate, I feel like it would be within my mission statement to say I need to try and figure out how to make this more useful to people. And what would that be? I'm
Well,
not
it's-
agreeing that this is the correct thing, but I think it's within the rights of that specific group.
Well, it's literally within the rights because they're making
Yeah.
money on it.
It's cowardly.
Yeah,
It's
it is
because
cowardly.
They want to keep selling the books and not really, you know, issue a statement and not really acknowledge everything problematic going on. And they're not really helping people.
Yep.
I loved Roald Dahl books growing up, but I would still feel like shit when, you know, Augustus Gloop would show up, Bruno Jenkins, Bruce Bogtrotter, you know, that would just kind of be a deeply uncomfortable, like, this sucks. But I still enjoyed the books, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about them as an adult looking back at everything. But also, I'm glad I got the experience of our teachers, having these books in the classroom, including the like ridiculously out of date, really problematic version. But I was glad to be able to, I don't know, see that, because that has not really been acknowledged outside of like people looking at his work academically.
Yeah.
And then also having the experience of his biography to be like, oh, this is why he's an asshole, because, getting some context. I mean, that doesn't explain the anti-Semitism, but really his like, some of the fatphobia, some of the misogyny, just really seeing like, and the, cruelty of British society.
I would like to point out that the French publishers are having none of this. They are changing nothing.
Oh.
Like,
Well, again, different cultural context.
yeah, but also different literary tradition.
Oh, yeah.
So is the just as a pitch for a way to do this, or / not do this, is like keep it? Would you keep the original descriptions and then put like a page at the front of the books, starting the conversation?
I like what Disney did with their racist movies. When they put them up on Disney Plus, they just put a disclaimer in the front saying like, we are showing this unchanged. It presents several issues, but we believe that the historical context of this is important to acknowledge. Right.
And then start the conversation that this is problematic. You can still experience it and then talk about.
Yep. But they just acknowledge it up front and they point out this is here.
Yeah. I'll share, there's a bunch of articles about it. If you can, I highly recommend checking out the Telegraph one, because they really do go through like, I think it's all of the changes. It's a very interesting read. There's some cool like motion graphics for showing like the markups and stuff. And yeah, I'm curious if listeners have feelings about this, because I think it is, there's a long legacy of his works, and people have all sorts of feelings. There's people that never liked them. There's people that did and revised it as an adult.
So next up, we have another revision of history, an update, I guess is probably what they would call it. Barney has gotten a makeover / has been redesigned pretty substantially. I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, but I gotta say, I don't think he's been redesigned. Like, it's not like he's been slimmed down. It's like better animation.
I don't see any slimming, to tell you the truth.
No, I think he's just a better drawn character.
Well, and if you want to talk slimming, like, so the article that we're talking about and that we'll post a link to is talking about Barney having buccal fat removal. Is that how it's pronounced? Buccal?
It isn't, but I like that pronunciation better.
We all thought it was, and then Dan looked it up, and apparently it's buckle, but it's spelled Buccal.
But no one can talk about buccal fat. That makes no sense.
Okay, so what that means is they were basically accusing him of having fat removed from his cheeks to emphasize his cheekbones.
Yeah.
I don't see that at all. And in fact, when I looked, the first thing that I centered on when I looked at this was his ankles. He has dinosaur ankles now. He has large, thick ankles now. If anything, he is bigger.
Well, I feel like the original was drawn by an 11-year-old, and the new one was drawn by a professional animator.
Well, I mean, the new one was drawn. Yeah, the first one's a felt costume.
Not done terribly well. Yeah.
I thought he looked less hippie, but he also kind of looks a little more rotund in the new version.
Yeah,
so I don't think you can really argue that they like slimified.
But and they're not even arguing that. They're arguing that he's had buccal fat or buccal fat removal or whatever.
Well, they changed the color of his eyes. They changed. There's like a tiny little like fashionable gap in his teeth, which I don't understand. Why that's even
they removed a tiny little portion of his history backstory where he was part of the Nazi party. And
right, that's small,
just a small one.
History of Barney. So is it really is this really the same thing? No, I don't think so. I mean, they updated the design of the character, but he's not any slimmer.
No, it's almost like the tabloid or whoever came out with this article is trying to sensationalize this as like, wow, even Barney gets cosmetic surgery in this era of lookism. It's like, no, that's not what happened.
No, and I think I could see that the original design looks a little bit more like a dinosaur, except for the ankles, because they had to give the costume person shoes to wear.
If I recall correctly, like Barney was a super low budget thing put together by like a mom, if I recall correctly.
Oh, I didn't know that part. I knew it was low budget.
No, it was literally like a local television station. Mom made the costume. Like,
yeah, it feels like kind of the inverse of the Roald Dahl thing. It's like I don't think
there's nothing here. Yeah.
This is just somebody trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Something I thought, I don't know, that was interesting was I'm actually curious if it's the same person. This is the cut, and in the article there was a cut through to someone talking about having this buccal fat removal. And it's such a sad story of like, he had these big round cheeks growing up, and it was the thing of like all the family members would like pinch them and stuff. And it just, he caught this complex, and he's very happy with the plastic surgery. But I don't know, seeing the picture of him as a kid in it, like made it sad for me.
Yeah.
I think especially because I was someone who had what in my family, I think I've talked about this, called choochable cheeks.
Oh God, yeah.
And then they would, all the senior family members would chooch my cheeks.
Do people really did that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't a thing that ever happened to me.
They go chooch.
Welcome to Chicago, everyone.
No, this was, I think, like a Long Island thing, because it's all my East Coast family.
Oh yeah.
They go, oh, I just got to chooch those cheeks.
So Barney, I don't know. Barney, do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, go off, sis. I want Barney to be like really gay and like clapping a lot. Like, I love you. You love
Like
me.
the emoji.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time.
It is.
Is it time?
Yes, it's time.
Are we going?
Eagle, I saw you.
That was good timing.
Fat Watch 2023.
The lag-free edition.
Yeah.
The non-distorted music edition.
I love this Fat Watch. I want one of these everywhere in every goddamn city in the United States.
What are we talking about? What do you want?
We're talking about clothing swaps.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So in Rochester, New York, not too far away from where I grew up, hello Rochester, New York.
Oh.
As many people said, resolution to lose weight, the organization ROC only created the event Our Bodies ROC to celebrate being comfortable in your skin. And so what they did is basically set up an event where you can bring in clothing that no longer fits. Yes?
Yes.
And basically it's a swap meet for multiple sizes of clothing. Now, I don't know about you, Trevor, but like my size shifts up and down a lot.
Yeah. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know. There's been I had a friend who was going to be doing like a plus size clothing giveaway thing, and was like, oh, I need some like clothes for masculine people. So I was holding onto those, and that never happened. And I have thought that LA should have a plus size, like, men's clothing, mask clothing.
Yeah, I mean, I
fashion
would
swap.
drive across this city if there was somewhere where I could look at multiple types of clothing that actually have multiple styles.
Well, and that's always been the problem, because people have tried to do this at various times online, but there's just
Doesn't work online.
No, it doesn't, because there's just so much shipping involved. I think I do know of one person who is actually doing this successfully. Basically, I think he's selling them, but like at very nominal prices, mostly to cover the shipping.
Yeah.
But yeah, the problem is it's the same problem with all online shopping. It's like, what if it doesn't fit, and then how do I send it back?
And I feel if you're a larger size,
and
there's
it's
more
one
variety.
and it's one thing if you're dealing with a company that can afford to do all the shipping back and forth, but when it's just a person, like, they can't pay for shipping two ways.
Right. Yeah, they would just lose all their money. Yeah, I think, and there's also a sense of community that comes with it.
Yeah.
Like when you can actually go out and have a shopping experience for something that is usually probably fairly sensitive, and do that with other people who are there for the same reason in the same space.
It's community
Not
building.
only that, but like, I feel super wasteful because when I outgrow my clothing, there are very few options for me what I can do with it.
Yes.
Most like out of the closet or Goodwill, they'll take it, but I've never seen it out on shelves. So I don't think they're using it. I think they're throwing it away. I've been told in the past to give it to like homeless shelters and that sort of thing, because there are larger homeless people out there and they can't find clothes.
Yeah.
So, but something like this, clothing is disposable right now, and it's cruel to fat people to make us churn through our closets the way we have to.
Well, especially when there's little enough that you can buy new.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it on the show before. If I find something that looks good and is in my size, I buy multiple copies of it because I know I'll never find it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something to look into, see if it's happening near you. And if there isn't a clothing swap happening here, maybe if
one.
you've got the time,
Yeah.
maybe you can make it. I can't because I'm lazy.
Seems valid to me. Okay. Well, we have a main subject, I think a very interesting main subject today because it applies to all peoples equally. We are talking about boundaries, folks.
Yes.
How do you set boundaries? What is a boundary for you? And what happens when somebody doesn't listen to your boundaries?
So, as examples, think of the person who keeps hitting you up online when you've tried to make it clear that you're not interested. The person who is just the personal space is too close.
Yeah.
And like you're happy to have a conversation with them, but not here,
Not looking up their nose.
Yeah. I used to teach English as a second language, and so I'd have people from all over the world. And I remember one day, this Japanese student was being slowly chased around the room by a Middle Eastern student because they kept adjusting their personal space. And they'd have this conversation, and the Japanese man would take a step back, and the Middle Eastern person would take a step forward. And like this was happening over the course of like 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, they managed to migrate halfway around the room.
That's amazing. So I'm curious, what is and I can go first, but what is an example of a loss of your own personal space or breakthrough in a boundary that you had set that got under your skin, and why?
I'm going, but
Okay. Go.
it was the case of a person trying to finagle an invitation. And you do the polite thing, which is you come up with an excuse why, like, no, that's not going to work. And then the person responded with a more direct request. And I said,
Oh, yeah, I know that.
and then I reiterated the excuse. Like I literally just retyped the same thing. And they came back with, no, you don't understand. I really need this.
Oh,
Wow.
And I'm like, you're so not getting it. And so I finally just said, N-O, period. And of course they were completely undone. Like, why are you being so rude?
that's an entitlement.
But it's me, so I don't have a problem with like, I'm sorry, I tried to tell you 3 times. If you're mad at me, that's really not my
It's
problem.
funny that you should use that word because I think entitlement is the feeling that gives people the feeling that they can bust through boundaries faster than anything else. And it's amazing to me the things that people feel they have entitlement to. I believe in this subject enormously because I have very big difficulties setting up boundaries because I'm so used to people just blowing through anything. I had 2 parents that respected no boundaries. So I just came to an understanding early on that I didn't get to have them. So it took me a while to realize when I went out into the real world, like, oh, wait, I'm allowed to put up walls around things that I consider mine or private. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think I've met a fair number of people in this community that will feebly try and tell you where the wall is and then just sigh as you don't notice and stroll past it.
Yeah, and I've tried to take countermeasures in that situation because, again, I operate fairly directly, but most people don't. And so, like, let's say I make an overture to a guy online and they're like, oh, yeah, that'd be great sometime. And I'm like, is that a blow off or is that they don't know how to make a date, which I find is very, very common. I think anybody who's ever operated on a dating site knows that most people are not like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. How about Tuesday? Nobody does that, except maybe me. And so it's, I want to know, like, I'm fine with no. I'm a big boy. I can totally handle no. I get that a lot of people can't. And I get that a lot of people don't want to say no. And in fact, in a lot of cultures, the last thing you ever say is no. Like, that's not a vocabulary item. You say, I'll try. You say, maybe. You say, oh yeah, let's see if it works out. You say anything, but you don't say, no, thank you.
But no is so powerful.
It's so powerful. And so
empowering.
The thing that I would try to do with people is like saying, if the answer is no, that's really okay. Like trying to make it an invitation to say no so we can just close this loop. Like I don't have a problem with no. And so anyway, that's what I do. I try to create an invitation for no in the, like, if it's no, it's okay. And
right.
But they're on the other side of a keyboard. It's like, I don't know if they believe me.
Oh,
Because so many people have been burned by, okay, I said no, and now you're upset. Like, that's the trap answer.
Yeah, it took me a long time to learn how to say no. I am not necessarily an expert at it in terms of experience, but I feel like I now have my head wrapped around the idea that if I say no, what's a good example? Oh, okay, here's a good example. There was an instance where within the last few years, where I had an interaction with somebody online where it was like, oh, basically just getting to know somebody, chatting online, social media at its finest. And eventually there was like, oh, like I'm interested. They said to me, I'm interested in you. And it was like, oh, thank you. Like, I will put down my, my firing squad of people who, like over my shoulders will shoot anybody who tries to give me a compliment.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, you guys can stand down. I'll take the compliment. Thank you. But I'm not encouraging because I actually had a boyfriend at the time, and who was still my boyfriend / partner. And so it's like, oh, thank you. And then it was like, well, would you ever be interested in a guy like me? It's like, well, that's actually not something I discuss because I have a partner right now, but thank you very much. And so like, no, to me feels like a very clear no. Like that's not something I'm going to talk about. And it just kept coming back. It was like, the next day, like, hey, and I think it even got to like, if you ever decide to leave them, let me know.
Oh God.
And I was like, that's inappropriate. That's really not something I would ever tolerate from somebody that I choose to have in my life saying, and so I choose not to have you in my life. And it's social media, so I think it's pretty easy to just be like, all right, done. Yeah. I'm out. But I think that's an example of saying no, and then they ignore it. And so I think the only solution after that is goodbye.
Yeah, and I think it's probably more common with men because there's that thing of like, well, I'm a man, I can have what I want. Or I don't know, it doesn't matter if I can have it, my dick wants it, that's good enough for me.
We're also taught, I mean, it's a male thing we're taught, at least in American Western culture, you're expected to be persistent.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're not persistent, you don't deserve love.
There was a social media exchange where this kid is talking to his aunt. He's like in high school, he's 16, and he's like depressed. And the aunt's like, "Well, what happened?" And she said, "I'm sorry." And the kid said, like, "Oh, well, I asked this girl on a date, and she said no." And the aunt says, "Well, you know what that means." And the guy says, "Yeah, I got to keep asking."
Oh,
And she was like, no, honey, that's not what I was going to say. No, but he really, he was burdened by the fact that, yeah, I know I'm supposed to keep asking till I wear her down. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And to the point where like, I bring my dad into these conversations a lot because he's the older generation I speak with, right? So I spoke to him about this recently, and he didn't understand why basically my father, when he wants something, will just keep going for it, asking and asking and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until you give up.
Oh,
right?
boy.
And he has done that with my stepmother to the point where he has created so much friction, and he doesn't understand like where that friction came from.
Well, on the other
he's like,
side,
I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to do this. I'm
Right.
supposed to ask again. Right.
I have also been on the other side of that where women I've had a lot of deep personal conversations with women, and they'll tell me like, well, he only asked once, so I guess he's not that serious.
Oh boy. Well, I think because there's a whole world of what romance is supposed to be. It's the fight for
rom-com
who you
bullshit.
love.
It's that fight for it. I got to
Fight
fight
for-
for it. And I've talked to so many women who are like, I want him to fight for me.
But that is manipulative.
And then you're going to slap him down if you're really not interested. Like he's supposed to know whether psychically whether I'm really interested.
Yeah,
and
like,
just playing hard to get, or like no, you
Be
can't play it that way.
authentic. Give a genuine answer when you have one.
Yeah.
And if you don't have one, say I don't have an answer. And obviously, it's not going to go smoothly because nobody else is necessarily going to be in the same mindset that you are. And people, it's this whole fight. I got hung up on this for a long time, which was like, if you love somebody, you fight for them. You fight to keep the love. If they want to leave, you fight to preserve. That is toxic as hell. Don't do that, people. That is because that takes the choice away from the other person. They're allowed to leave you if they want to. Like,
well, it's also disempowering because then it's like, okay, the fate of my feelings are in their hands.
Okay, but what about, so I think there is like on the apps, Fat World, there's a type of guy who will not respect anyone's boundaries and I think end up blocked by enough people to where he makes a new profile and does the same thing. And I don't know if anyone really ever Sorry, it started hailing.
It is
hailing.
straight
Hailing
up
like
hailing.
crazy.
Everybody, this is Los Angeles, and there is just anyway.
We had to look up hail in the dictionary. We didn't know what it was.
I actually got nervous for my car because it's parked out of the open.
It is, yeah.
But like, if anyone takes the time to be like, "Oh, honey, this isn't how you do this," and you're probably like, "This is this," I've seen you making, I have blocked you, so I know you keep making new profiles. Like, you gotta get people's boundaries, and you gotta get how this works. And like, I don't want to do it. I keep blocking them because I keep, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Like engaging with them and be like, maybe this time they're not going to just start sending, I'm not going to say hi and then get, 8 dick pics in response.
So I don't get onto, what do you call it? Facebook Messenger a lot. And I don't have the notifications turned on, right? I have been approached, I think it's 3 or 4 different guys. When I've gone back on to check my messages, there's just a string of hey,
Yes.
hey, hi.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
God.
for months from some of them. And I'm like, why? Like, you're not getting anything out of this. You like, clearly either I'm not responding or it's not getting to me. Why would you keep trying?
Well, because I think it just doesn't really mean that much to them. I think they throw it out there to see if you come back, and then they do it again, and they do it again, and it's like if you were to respond to that, the value of that interaction would be insubstantial. I think they would just see what they can get out of you.
Yeah.
But it's just like a hey, like whenever they think of like whatever it is they might be wanting from you.
I for a while I assumed they were bots, but then when I looked at that, it was like, no, those are actually different things you're saying. Like, okay.
We've come a long way when people can aspire to be bots.
The bots are more polite.
Better conversations.
And here's my problem is that I end up feeling bad for them, and then I have to fight myself not to
No, Don, no.
throw them something.
No.
I'm with you. Like there was that just happened to me. There was someone. It was a chaser actually, and I thought, like I'm always looking. I love talking to chasers because we do so rarely. And he's like, "What's up?" And he's like, he's a younger guy. I'm like, "Okay, hi," and I try to match the effort they put in with the effort I put in. Like someone says, hi, I will send back a waving emoji. And so he's like, what's up? I'm like, my stock answer, doing well, keeping busy. And then he writes back, what's up?
Oh, geez.
Okay, we're done now.
Yeah, you're not listening. This also goes. A lot of these interactions we're talking about are online. What about in person?
I mean, we talked about this a little bit at Bigger Vegas of like, my strategies for when people break my like physical boundaries. So like the whole, when someone comes in to kiss you, like as a like, oh hi, like
Especially
smooch.
during the times of COVID.
My thing, especially because I know there's some people like I'm like I know they're gonna kiss me. I'm like I don't want to kiss them, so like I'm like okay, lean in and then like cheek pivot,
Like right at the end.
Yeah.
Because if you do it too early, they'll follow you.
Yeah.
You gotta do the surprise turn, like, and it's the cheek, and then because they're not gonna like pull your face, or I would hope.
I actually like I'll go in for the hug. I don't mind hugs, but kissing on the lips.
And people do it.
Yeah, no, they
People
do.
really need to do
Well,
it.
and there was a time it was a gay. It was like a very gay thing. Like, oh, I haven't seen you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's kiss on the lips. Yeah,
Yeah.
That
And
feels like a while ago though now.
It is. Especially it was way pre-COVID. But anyway, what I would do is I just don't make my face available. I go right to the hug where my face is past
And
them.
it's turned.
It's turned. Like they can't get near. I don't even have to deal with the cheek thing.
I think you have a little bit better time of it because you're so tall. Because I've tried to do that exact thing and they will follow me.
Oh.
Like they will.
Well, but it's. I mean,
Try
you
this.
go past them. You
because you're above their head.
No. Try this. It's rather than going in, go for the hug with the wide arms. If you go for the eggs for the wide arms, we're
yeah. That's a good
broadcasting,
idea.
this is a hug. You are not kissing me.
Yeah.
I do that all the time and I never get kissed. Because I see the kissers coming, arms wide for the big hug. Because now, look,
Yeah.
I'm enthusiastic to see you. I am happy to be hugging you. If you
lot
don't
of
take
time-
this hug,
I hadn't thought of that, but I do that.
Let me ask this though, because a lot of times it has happened to me, and again boundaries where it will start with a hug. It'll be like, hey, how are you? It's a hug, and then they'll keep their arms back as I'm trying to pull back from the hug, and that's when the kiss happens.
Wow.
It's like they won't let me go until a kiss has occurred.
no, that's creepy.
Yeah,
that's
no, it
officially
is.
creepy.
And this is different people. Like, and some of them, yes. So that's how it's happened to me probably
Have you had that?
3 or 4 different
I
guys.
think, I mean, Michael, I don't know if it's the tall thing, but I think it is the sort of like big muscle guy dominant thing where I don't deal with a lot of shit because people don't pull it.
Yeah,
And
that's never happened to me either. So that might
I
be
think
a
my
factor.
tolerance, my ability to convey zero tolerance for that now is substantially higher than the last time this happened.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think there's that.
Well, because really there are signals that one can give off without outright smacking them. And it's not that I smack them, but I mean, I've told Trevor this. Like, I do have a technique. I've told you this. It is the metaphoric rolled up newspaper over the nose.
No.
No. And I've done that with people, and it works. It's like you do it once, they're fun.
I mean,
It's just that sort of like interruption.
Yeah.
Where like,
don't do that.
Don't do that. And they're like, oh, okay. And then you just move on.
Yeah.
And they're fine.
Yeah.
No, I'm not actually hitting them. But there's there's the rebuff.
I'm glad you said that because I was picturing an actual like swat to the nose.
No, it's like when the dog gets in your face and you just give it a tap on the snout and it goes, oh, hello.
But Dan's so strong that tap is more like they go flying.
Hulk smash.
Hulk tap on nose.
Does this apply to like anything? Because I think something that's more common for like chubs gainers, just like fat folks in general, is like the handsiness. Which my approach to that is like, I mean, if it is like depending on how the interaction's going, pulling away, or if it's like a nice interaction, but I'm like I want to kind of like I don't want to bop them on the nose, kind of like carefully removing their hand. And kind of like making it almost like a hand thing, or if it's like both hands, like grabbing their hands and be like kind of like doing this thing and then like putting them down.
Did you learn that from me? Because
I don't think so.
That is totally a technique.
I like
use.
Dan's suggestion of the taking of the hand and then like patting the hand,
Whatever
to, like,
you wanna
make a
do with
point
it.
and then returning it to them. Like I like that.
Yeah, because they've got their hands going somewhere you don't want it to go, and you just take their hands and like, oh, so good to see you, and clap them,
And
back.
give them right back.
You give them right back, and it doesn't occur as a rebuff, but I call it a redirect.
So what about the poor Japanese guy where it's not something overt and really aggressive and direct? It's just you're too close to me right now. Just say it. Right?
I mean, I have like because I've had that where it is just like someone who is like they are not getting personal space, and it was in a pool, and I was like initially like backed against the wall, and I was like moving and just trying to create more space, and they just kept going. I just had to disengage because there was no way to like be like I just get out of my fucking face.
Yeah.
Well, because if you don't take care of it, it does rise to that. This is an example of what I call the rolled up newspaper. I will say, hey, could you just move back a bit? I need a little more space.
Which is extremely healthy communication.
Well, and it's just, and they're like, oh, okay. Because 9 out of 10 times they didn't realize it. 1 out of 10 times you'll get the jerk who's like, well, what's wrong? Do you not like me? I'm like, I need a little more personal space. Do you have a problem with that? Like, I'll make it their problem. Like, do you have a problem with the fact that I need personal space? It's never, I mean, like I said, 1 out of 10 times. It almost never happens. Usually people are just unconscious of it, or they'll get defensive, like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Like, no, it's fine. I just need a little space. It's okay. We can keep talking.
I mean, I have had with like touching stuff, like removing their hands, because I would do the thing of like the playful thing, and like it was not getting across. I'm like, okay, we are not. You're like, you are not touching my face. Like we are not doing that.
Yeah.
Like that is just like I'm happy to keep talking to you, but you're not putting your hands on my face.
And you just said that, right?
Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, because they don't get it, obviously. That's why they keep doing it.
Well, and a lot of people, their nature is to push boundaries until they're told no. And that's all they kind of want to be told no. And if they aren't told no, they're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Well, more than that, I think they get a little lost. Like, is anything possible? Because that gives me no guidelines. I think it actually can get scary for someone when the boundaries are invisible or gone and they don't know what's right. And so they're spacewalking.
So there's a lot to talk about with boundaries, but I think the clearest, just be communicative and direct. I think, and it's difficult, and if you can't muster that, at least understand why people aren't hearing you. Because if you're not communicating, then what could they possibly know about you?
I would also love to hear listeners' tips about boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No tip today, but we do have a bit.
We do. I figured since we were talking about boundaries between people, that what is the clearest boundaries that we can do is actually the boundaries we've drawn with lines on maps between countries.
Literal borders.
And so, like, literal borders can create some weird ass situations. So, like, where I grew up, there was this place called the Catamount Ski Resort, right? There was a restaurant there called the Swiss Hut that the New York and Massachusetts border went straight down the middle of the restaurant.
Inside.
Holy shit, right?
Of course
So
it did.
on one side, if you were sitting in Massachusetts and you were 20 years old, you could order alcohol.
Oh my God.
If you were on the other side of the restaurant, you couldn't. And I was also warned when I applied for a job there that I would be able to serve alcohol on one side, but not on the other.
That's maniacal.
It was very weird.
That seems like a trap.
It seems like why they built it there.
So here are some borders between countries that have made things difficult in different ways. All right?
Okay.
I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but the name of the town is Llivia, I think. Llivia, and it's Spanish. It's a tiny town that belongs to Spain, despite the fact that it sits within the borders of France.
Oh,
Entirely.
okay.
Over 2,000 years old, how did this little Spanish town end up going it alone on the French countryside? 1. The town is symbolically passed between Spain and France every 25 years as a sign of friendship between the two countries.
Oh, that's such
my
a
God.
balderdash. There's no way there was friendship between the two countries.
2. A cousin of the King of France was appointed lord over the land and then willed his estate to Spain upon his death to spite his cousin.
Oh, dear.
Oh.
3. It remains Spanish due to a typo in a treaty signed over 300 years ago.
That sounds right.
Or 4, the town doesn't actually exist except on paper.
Oh. That's wild. What?
You guys have been getting
How
too
is
many
that
of these
possible?
right. I'm turning up the difficulty.
I want to
tonight.
go
Okay.
to. I want to say the second one because I like
Yeah.
because it goes to our spites giving.
Yeah, I like the spite one. To spite
Okay,
the
we've
cousin.
got 2 for spite. Dan, are you spiteful or are you going to go in a different
Oh,
direction?
this is the one where he willed it to Spain?
Yeah, he willed
to
it to Spain to spite his cousin.
No. That's complicated. No, I think it doesn't exist.
Okay. The correct answer is, in fact, it remains Spanish due to a typo in a treaty signed over 300 years
Oh,
ago.
that was my second guess.
Yep.
Oh, that's wild.
It was apparently like it was supposed to denote the border, but there was a typo. So they just left it as part of Spain. Right. Probably one of the most famous borders in the modern world is also the most heavily militarized. The Korean DMZ.
Oh, yeah.
Consists of 160 miles between North and South Korea, a virtual no man's land with barely any human presence. While its existence may cause huge stress for Koreans, it has actually given rise to a specific side benefit no one ever foresaw. What is this side benefit? 1. The DMZ has become a natural wildlife park, housing several endangered plant and animal species. 2. Extreme danger tourism packages bring much needed income to South Korea, where tourists can pay to escape from North Korea to South Korea through the DMZ, although it should be pointed out they never actually enter the actual DMZ. 3. Extreme danger tourism packages bring much needed income to North Korea, where tourists can pay to escape back to North Korea while fleeing American CIA operatives and South Korean soldiers through the DMZ, though it should be noted they never actually enter the DMZ.
Okay.
Or 4, the forests reclaiming the entire DMZ has actually changed wind patterns in Korea and are being credited with increasing agricultural output in South Korea over the past 20 years.
I think the habitat for wildlife.
Yeah.
Wildlife habitats, we got 2
first
for
one.
wildlife habitats.
I think that's what I'm going to go for, too.
Okay, we got 3 for wildlife
I
habitats.
like the wind, but I don't buy it.
And the correct answer is, in fact, wildlife habitat.
Yay!
Yeah. Several endangered animal and plant species now exist among the heavily fortified fences, landmines, and listening posts,
Oh, yeah.
including multiple types of endangered cranes, foxes, and bears, and the extremely rare Siberian tiger.
As long as they don't step on a landmine.
Yeah, that's my first thought was like the crane landing beautifully and then just exploding.
All right, our final question. Though it's only about 0.5 square miles, Hans Island has been the subject of a long-standing and heated territorial dispute between Canada and Denmark. As recently as 2022, both countries have finally decided to split the tiny island down the middle.
Almost like Hans across the sea.
Oh
Wow.
my God. Dan.
While most countries won't bat an eye over this, and it's likely not to hit the newspaper, it will have what interesting geographical effect? 1, it will put Denmark close enough to Canada where it will automatically receive favored trade status, something Canada would prefer not to do. 2, Canada and Denmark have technically been at war since the late 1930s, so the two countries will finally be able to directly attack each other without the use of any Navy or Air Force.
Okay.
3, splitting the island down the middle will double the number of land borders both countries have. Or 4, The island sank 4 years ago due to rising oceans. It will be the first internationally recognized subaquatic border.
I do think we have subaquatic borders, but
I'm going to say double the borders.
Double the borders. Okay.
I think I'm going to go with doubling the borders too. Although it certainly puts me at risk of being seen as foolish if I don't know the borders of Denmark. I'll go for it anyway.
doubling the borders.
The correct answer is splitting the island down the middle will double the number of land borders.
Yay!
Yay.
Trevor gets us another point.
There you go.
He's so smart.
So there's all sorts of borders like that are fascinating. There are lots of borders that apparently go down the middle of people's living rooms
Really?
and things.
Oh.
So, Trevor, if our listeners live in a strange border situation, where can they tell us about it?
Well, we're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us a 5-star there. 5 stars everywhere.
5 stars.
Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod and see the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Sorry, oh God.
Maybe you have to burp. And you're Trevor. And your eardrums have just been blown out by the sound.
I'm pretty sure that wind art moved when you did that.
So if you haven't taken your earbuds off,
Watch out.
Oh, God. Goodness me.
it was too good not to.